guys doing? Oh man, what was that? I feel like I'm getting freer and freer, like more less uptight on this podcast. Like episode by episode, I feel like I get more loose tongue and more free by as each episode goes by. It's not a bad thing, I suppose. Guys, I know last episode I talked about how life has been lifing. You guys is still lifing, although it's getting to slow down a little bit and I'm getting my bearings little by little, but I've just I've had a little major life major life change, and I'm just trying to get my balance, trying to get my routine back, and I'm just trying to get my bearings little by little. And I felt really bad. I felt guilty about having not having not, hey Jesus, about having not recorded an episode in a while. Anytime I sleep like this, and I remember that I've not recorded in like a week or two, I'll just jolt off awake and I'll just be so bothered. Will I still carry will I carry the mic and record? No. I have content ideas or like books and some things I want to record, but I don't have it structured, I don't have it well prepared. Everything is just all jumbled up in my brain. But in the spirit of consistency, I think today's episode itself is just going to be one jump from one to the other, because I didn't even budget. I say budget. I didn't really plan it, but I just need to say something. I need to talk. I need to just record something. I need to put something out there, and also in the spirit of consistency. And so you guys will just permit as much rambling as it's going to be, but God will help me to just make sure it's okay. I'm just going to jump from one topic to another. I don't really have one particular thing like all figured out, but anyways, you get the logic. And I'm not even going to edit all of this. I'm not going to edit it all out. So you see how chaotic my brain feels at this point. And you guys, I'm still in a reading slump. Oh my gosh. I still in I like I've just my mind has just been so muddled up. It's not been together. I cannot even really explain it. Last month, I think I read just two books. Just two. I feel so disappointed, but no matter how hard I pick a book, it's either I read just a page or two, and I'm just done. But yeah, I did read one. After the one I told you guys about that I finished, I read Fourth Wing. I've been seeing that book almost everywhere. Instagram vendors, even even my personal and yeah, personal vendor. I've been seeing it on her page. I've seen it like multiple times. I keep seeing fourth wing, and it's all over the place. One of the most popular books I read in Nigeria. One of the things that even made me pick it up was that most times when I'm in a reading slump like that, I think I mentioned that is either I read something really slow, a faith-paced book, or I read something that I normally wouldn't read, or I read books that I've read before that I know that they're a staple for me, that they are really good books. I know that I will always enjoy no matter how much of a slumber I am in. So I said that, oh, let me just take this book and pick it up and read. It's totally different from what I read. It's a romantic and fantasy. It's not exactly coming of age. It's an adult fiction. It's not so terrible, it's not so bad, but considering how they've hyped it, how they hype it, and how ridiculously expensive that book is, it's just there for me. It's not exactly bad. It's not exactly all top tier or all of that, but it's okay. I saw some reviews on bookstagram where a lot of people are really, they don't have good reviews about the book at all, at all. Some people are were like they DNF'd it, they couldn't go past some, past few chapters and all of that. So I was not wondering that was not all of the hype. I think the reason why it was okay for me to read, or I found it an averagely okay read, was because I didn't go in with any expectations, to be honest. It's romance, fantasy, cannot pass dragons and whatnot. But it was an average read. It was averagely okay. It engaged me at least for like, I said like I read it for like a day and a half. I said like, let's say evening, let's say I started this evening of today and I finished it by tomorrow afternoon, that kind of thing. So I found it engaging enough. I will not even lie. And it was just normal. It was averagely okay. It wasn't top tier. Didn't blow my mind and all of that. And after reading that first, I think it's a three series book. I took the other one. I started reading the other one, the Iron Flame. If I tell you that I've not read past, okay, I think I'm past half of the book. I can't even. I've been struggling to finish it. I've been struggling to finish it. Thank God I didn't use my money to buy it. If I had used my money to buy it, I would have been in so much pain, because it's not so bad, but I don't think it's worth the amount they sell. I mean, they're selling almost 30K or thereabout though, for just one, not two or not two or three, not the three. I think just one or thereabout is ridiculously expensive. It's not worth the price for me, sha. And maybe it's because it's just not my typical genre. But yes, that's what I've been up to as regards reading. Also, yeah, lately, I've been pondering on it, and I was going to really do I like prepare a like really prepare for an episode on it, but I might as well just talk about it now. Since the beginning of this year, in church, we've been treating biblical characters for our school on Sunday. We call it school on Sunday. It's like a short like 25 minutes to 30 minutes Bible study lesson. So we have a Sunday school pamphlet, but we call it school on Sunday. MFM call it school on Sundays, but CACs they call it Sunday school, but it just typically means the same thing. And we've been studying biblical characters. I think we studied Epaphroditus, and last week, week before, we talked about Apostle Paul. And for some reason, I think maybe because of the fact that I've been reading the New Testament, and apparently, self, I'm just reading it from research that all of the epistles that Paul wrote, they are called the Pauline epistles. This is my first time of hearing it. It's just like saying the first book, or and the books of Moses, Genesis, Exodus, and the likes, or calling Matthew, Mark, Luke the Gospels. They say I'm just reading it now that all of the letters and the epistles that Paul wrote, they are called the Pauline epistles. Shocking, a bit mind blowing if I may add, but it's my first time learning of that, but that's just one more new thing to learn. And we've been talking about Apostle Paul, and I just he's one, even besides before, rather, before, we treated it, or we are treating it in school on Sunday. Apostle Paul has always been one biblical character that I, I won't say mesmerized, but I've just been really intrigued about his story. His story is one that literally really, really intrigues me. And in a way, I feel like when we talk about salvation, when we talk about salvation, when we are listening, or we're trying to understand the essence of Jesus's death and resurrection for us, Like Apostle Paul is a practical example of what salvation really means. Like if let's say for science students, when we are doing some topics, we learn about theory, the theoretical aspect, we write the notes, sometimes we even write down the formula. But oftentimes you really get the concept of that topic. You really get the concept what that topic really means when you practicalize it. And even if you are not the one that is handling that practical aspect, if when someone is practicing it and you can see it, or you are visioning it, you're envisioning it, you really have it, you get a grasp of what that topic really entails. That is what salvation is to Apostle Paul's story. While I was younger in age, younger spiritually, and not as mature as I am now, I used to, not necessarily, I won't call it hate, but Apostle Paul was one of my least, yes, my least favored or least liked characters, biblical characters. I think because of that, how I would have heard Bible stories, and I don't even read the Bible so in depth, or understood a lot of things I understood now, how we persecute the Christians and all of that. And then when I was younger, I used to believe that Apostle Paul was a Gentile, that he was not a Jew at all. That was my thought. That he wasn't a Jew at all, that he was just a Gentile. But I haven't read the Bible, I haven't read from time to time, and having an understanding about a lot of things. I realized that Apostle Paul is what is your typical Jew, is who a Jew would be, is how you would classify a Jew if you were to define a true blood. Yeah, a true blood that is not false blood though, that is true blood, that you say that, oh, this is an original. Apostle Paul is who you would say. Apostle Paul, I think he was from the tribe of Benjamin. Albeit, although he has dual citizenship, he is both Jewish and he's a Roman. He was born in Tarsus, Cilicia, in modern day Turkey. So he was both Jewish and Roman. He had dual citizenship, and he was a Pharisee. They were the religious sect then, that the Pharisees and the Sadducees, that they were they were the chief priests, they were the ish amongst the Jews. Then they were the major religious sect amongst the Jews. And even while reading that forward, I realized that where he learned, or them under the person, under where he got his tutelage, his pupillage, whatever you would call it, was one of the most revered teachers, Gamaliel, of those times. Like, the top, when you say the best professors in town, the best professors in the city, that was Gamaliel, and that was where he learned. It was under him that he was pupilled. And in a way, I think it helps you to understand why he had such vigor and such passion for it. Passion, rather, what fueled his passion for the hate of modern, and the first Christians, the first set of Christians. Then it just helps you to not understand, but you come to realize that, oh, I see why, because it was his a staunch Jew, that persecuted the Christians then. And I just keep thinking about him, and how the grace of God is just so beautiful, how salvation really works. Because if you genuinely think about it, Apostle Paul is the last person that you would expect. I mean, I know that is what salvation basically means. You know, rescuing the lost souls, the perishing, and all of those. It comes together. But when you just keep thinking about it, you would expect that, oh, thunder will strike him to death, he will burn to ashes. As someone who had persecuted the Christians so much, had made their lives so miserable. The first martyr, Stephen, he was there while they were stoning while they were stoning Stephen to death. He was there. He signed it off. He was among the people that approved of it. And you just keep thinking about all of those things, and you just keep thinking that, God, how does your grace work? How does your grace? And I kept thinking, kept thinking. And most times, or of recent, and often, to be honest, I think about the salvation a lot. And not just from the lens of maybe an unbeliever, but from the lens of me, that that I call myself a believer. I think about how me, that I'm such a wretch, how me that should be bound, that I'm already damned to eternal damnation. Like I've been sentenced to eternal damnation. Like there shouldn't have been a way out for me. There shouldn't have been a way out for me. And God in his infinite mercy just taught me just taught me worthy to be called a child. And not just a child, though, to be made joint heir with Christ, God himself. And I just keep thinking about salvation, that there is nothing in this world, there is no amount of work, there is no amount of giving, there is no amount of Christianese you might speak, there is no amount of only do, there is nothing in this world that can ever, could ever, will ever merit salvation. Nothing. There really isn't anything. While in the Old Testament, during the time, during the Jews, the Moses, the Israelites, God tried to make a way for like make substitution for them to use the blood of animals, the blood of doves. And God was so genuinely even merciful that, but if you didn't have money for goat, there's a substitute for that. If you didn't have money for the substitute, there's another substitute for that. So there were I don't have money. There is no I don't have money there. Whether you have money, whether you don't have money, there is something, there is something that you could afford, that could grant you restitution, that you could bring for restitution for whatever sin that you might have committed. But still, it was not enough, because even the person that wants to help you to make the sacrifice to you have to buy for that person. Imagine if we were still living that life. Imagine if that's what was still on. Imagine having to buy gold for every time you told that tiny lie, or you withheld the truth when you should have spoken the truth, or buying a small ram or a small sheep anytime you blasphemed. Those little things that when you are even done doing them, you might not realize that it's a sin at that moment, but when the Holy Spirit calls your attention to it, all you just have to do is kneel down wherever you are and just genuinely be remorseful and confess that sin, and the burden of that sin is lifted, and that weight is lifted off of you. Imagine the ease at which you could come to God. There is no temple veil. There is no one having to be a middle ground between you and God. I know one of my spiritual fathers will say that God does not have a grandchild. We say God does not have a grandchild. Everyone is God's child. Yes, we have pastors, prophets, those that we hold in high regard, that yes, they are God's ministers, God vessels, and all of that. But still, yet that there is no, if you want to go to God, you do not need a middleman. You do not need an intermediary, at least physically, except the Holy Spirit that holds our hands and helps us to pray. But that you do not need someone to help you to go and meet God, that this girl has sinned though, please forgive her, like it was done then. When someone sinned and wanted to make restitution, wanted to offer sacrifice, the priest has to cleanse themselves, has to offer sacrifice for themselves first before they can offer sacrifice for you as well. And even then, they had the clothes that they tied around the waist of the priest, and so that in case the priest's sins were so much so that God's eye can't behold it and he dies in the inside the holy sanctuary. They can always drag out the priest from there. You know, all of those things. Imagine if that were the case now. Oh my Jesus. I keep thinking about it. I keep imagining that. Imagine if that were true, if that truly were the case now. I I can't imagine. I don't even want. I can't. I'm imagining it, but still, it feels unimaginable that if that were the life we were living or we had to be living, how would that have been? And I can't help but be grateful for that salvation that I mean that I've not been born safe. I'm already cursed to the life of sin. I'm cursed to the life of the flesh. I'm cursed to the consequences and the damnation that just being a flesh comes with brings. And I cannot help but think and just be grateful for that gift of salvation. There's this I've forgotten this girl's name, this singer. She said that me that I'm a wrench, you made the wrench your treasure, not just the treasure, a joint hair with Christ. Who am I? What qualifications do I possess? What makes me so perfect, so worthy? I do not have any qualifying worthiness. I don't know for others, so but me, I know that I'm not worthy in any way. I am not. And no matter how much I try to I try to be very careful of the way I speak, the things that I say, where I am, how I dress, how I communicate, all of those things, just to be very careful and try to in your righteous walk with God. Still, there is always something you can. The flesh can never please God. God is spirit. The only person that can please or worship God, even the Bible attests to it, for as many that do not walk after the flesh but in the spirit, they shall be called the sons of God. You cannot do God's bidding, God's will in the flesh. It's not even possible. No wonder the Bible says the spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. There are times that you know the right thing. Apostle Paul will say that which I want to do, I do not do it. But the one which I don't want to do, that is what I keep doing. And you keep thinking about it as a person, you'll be like, I know this is wrong. I didn't want to even do it, but I don't know how I found myself doing it, going ahead with it. I'd made such commitment, such promise to myself. Oh, I wouldn't do this anymore. Oh, I would not talk this way. Oh, I will not drink again. Oh, I will not be like this. But I still keep on doing it. And you just realize the weakness and the fragility of the flesh compared to being in the spirit. And my goodness, I will always be great. Every day I pray to God. Every time I open my mouth to pray, as often as I can, I make sure that I am great. I thank God for that gift, because there is nothing you can ever do that will ever merit it. There is nothing you can ever do. There is no amount of work, nothing at all. There isn't. Paul, no wonder Apostle Paul said that it is not by works that man should boast. Imagine if salvation is by works, or how rich you were, or how eloquent you could speak, or how good your Christianese were. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I wonder what salvation would have turned to. God is so wise. God is such a wise God. Imagine if salvation were based on human things, on how well you can speak, how well you know the Bible, how often you pray, how much of giving you give, how eloquent you could speak about the word. Imagine if how that was how God based salvation. Imagine, just imagine. Thank God. And when I think about it from that angle, me that I never persecuted Christians, I don't know, I don't persecute anybody. And it seems so cool from my own manner. But whenever I think about salvation as regards to Apostle Paul, and I just look at the grace and the mercy that Apostle Paul received in God's sight. that's one of the ways where you know that you can't really question God. And sometimes I'll just almost compare, although compare to Judas Iscariot, that whose sin was even greater. I mean, a lot of things. If you open my head and you look into my head, there's a lot of odd, really odd things that there are just odd questions that even me myself that I'm thinking it, I know they are odd or weird or just abstract in a way. I'll just think about it. Omo, like Judas Iscariot, did he even do this bad? Or can you equate what he did compared to what Paul did? And Paul really persecuted the Christians. He made their lives miserable to the point that I think even till a fact, a lot of the earlier apostles never really liked him. Like he wasn't fully accepted, and even he knew that even before they could open their arms to let him in in the circle, let's call it a circle, they were really cautious. They won't want to let him in, and they were so cautious of him that what if it's a lie, what if it's a facade, what if it's wearing true. And I really can understand their doubt and their fear, because if it were me as well, I will not even relate at all at all. I think even till the end, some apostles, and not just the apostles, some of the early Christians, early founding Christians that were not exactly apostles, but just fellow servants and disciples all together. I feel it's not even I feel it is there. It's there in the Bible. Even Apostle Paul himself said it about how they were skeptical about him. And I don't know, man. It's just the gift salvation is just it's such a wide rather. It's such a wide. Oh my goodness, it's such a wide topic when you're talking about some things in the Bible. And Apostle Paul is a practicalized example of what salvation really means, or not just really means, or the purpose of salvation. There is a hymn that talk that I can't remember the hymn. I just remember the few words. It says, "Rescue the lost, rescue the perishing." I can't really remember. Rescue the lost, rescue the perishing. Apostle Paul comes into mind when you hear of rescue the perishing. Imagine someone that persecuted the whole Christendom. One person that the whole of the Christian community were scared of. Everybody, everyone who called themselves Christians then, they were scared of him. And when he found salvation, or when Jesus appeared to him at Damascus, and when bowed down that speak to me, when Jesus was talking, that I didn't even know who was. He had already gone blind at then, and speak to me, Lord. For some reason, I kept thinking in my mind that how did he know who was talking to him? I find myself very curious. I don't even know how I remembered, but each time I read that part or I come across it or I just stumble on it, I keep thinking in my heart that how did he recognize that, oh, this is Lord, this person that is speaking to me is Lord, is God. But then the glory, God, I've not experienced it in such vivid physical terms, as some will say they've seen Jesus and all of that. I felt his presence, but I've not experienced it in that such terms. But from biblical readings and other people's experiences, we could almost tell that yes, it's probably the glory. I've asked the question and answered it myself. Yeah, that is probably the glory, is maybe the magnitude, the weight of that glory that forces you. And I've come to also see, like, it's like a trend or a pattern in almost all of the times that biblical characters, yeah, that they've encountered God, they've encountered Jesus, that it's such an overwhelming something, that so much so that they can't help but bow their heads. truthfully speaking, I've not had this thought. It's just as I'm speaking that it just occurred to me that yeah, I think that's a pattern that most times when they encounter God, like Moses, when different biblical characters have an encounter of God or Jesus, they cannot just help but I think that glory is just so overwhelming. It will be a good thing to encounter in my lifetime. I would love to experience that glory, that meeting, it will be a very good experience. I've been digressing a little. I apologize. We're talking about Apostle Paul, and it's so ironic that most of the epistles in the New Testament are written by him. I think they say out of 27 books in the New Testament, I think 15 were the ones that he wrote. And also ironic that a lot of the epistles or the letters that he wrote are one of the things that form a foundation or a standard that was living, or a standard of our Christian walk as believers, as Christians now. When we read the book of from the Romans till and we read all of those things. Most of the Bible quotes that we quote off, and there are some of the letters that he wrote to different churches at different times. And I just marvel at the height. No, is it height? Yes, I marvel at how deep he worked with God, so much so that he had such revelations and such mysteries, that he could write such profound words, words that were so profound that they are what we base our beliefs, or they are foundations of our religious work in these days. It's so ironic. Like, who would have thought? Yeah, we other apostles had, they wrote other epistles, and definitely they are not underwhelming or undermined. But it just comes to play that how can someone ah salvation is so beautiful, it's such a beautiful thing, because how can someone who persecuted the Christians so much, with such vigor, with such fervor, with such passion and life, made it his life's mission, now end up being the person who writes such letters, so much so that they transcended time and transcended civilization, transcended countries, continents. They've been interpreted from one language to the other, to the other, to the other, and still it still stands so firm, so much so that it's a foundation for our religious work. It serves as a beacon for us, or as a way in which we measure the things we do as Christians. It's so bittersweet and so ironic that I don't even know what to class it, how to even express it, and it just goes to show you that you really how God works. You really can never fully understand it. In fact, to the normal mind, to the normal human mind, the way God works will never really make sense. It can never make sense. In fact, if it makes sense to you, then it's probably not a God doing, to be very, very honest. If it makes sense, if it's making sense, or if you can figure it out, put it together, I don't know. I don't know. Another thing that, should I say, I found really intriguing, or found really something that you could model after about Apostle Paul, is his perseverance. Ah, he suffered though. Jesus, he suffered and still persevered. I've been reading his letters for the past in fact I think since the beginning of this year, and recently I just finished the book of his epistles to the Colossians. I mean to the Christians in Colossae, and I just keep reading. I read about his sufferings, and in chapter 1 and 2 of Colossians, at the end of chapter 2, you could see that the epistle was sent to them by Epaphroditus. And now I now finished chapter 4, and I'm seeing that it was this brother, it was Tychius. I didn't pronounce that well. I would have checked the pronunciation if I knew I was going to read it out. That delivered. I'm thinking that it's probably for the Colossians. They probably sent the epistle, maybe chapter 1 and 2 that we know now, were first sent by Epaphroditus. Then chapter 3 and 4 that we're reading now was sent by this other brother, all of which were written while he was in prison. And you know, like when I was still younger, yes, and I hadn't read the Bible this much, and now the or well, while the preacher is preaching, pastor is preaching, or we're having biblical chat or Bible study, and we learn about how most of the epistles that Apostle Paul wrote was when he was in prison. I could never really get the hang of it or a handle over it. It never really formed in my mind. It never really formed in my mind. And when I now read his journey in the book of Acts, in the book of Acts of the Apostles, how we went from Felix, Pontius Pilate, we just kept going from one place to from one prison to another, awaiting trial, awaiting judgment. I took my time. Yeah, sometimes I think early this year, I dwelt on it very well to really understand, how it was he lived such life of suffering and perseverance. And of all of those things, he never meant such big deal to him. He said all of the things, he counted them, all of the things that were before, he counted them as loss. But all of this suffering, all of this pain, he says he counts it as gain for Christ. And it just makes it so, like I said earlier, bittersweet. And I keep thinking that thank God for this matters. Thank God for this, for people like Apostle Paul, for the apostles that they were martyred, for the Apostle Peter, all of them that faced such cruel, gruesome, violent death just for the good news to get to people like us. And it's so ironic also and funny that the place where modern Christianity started is now dominated by I think it's not as it's isn't a Christian dominated country or place, or Christianity isn't the most dominant religion there. And I just kept thinking about it, that imagine all those fervor and those vigor and those for me to live is death. And for me to die is gain. I will die for God, I will live for God. If I live, I live for Christ. If I die, I'm dying for Christ too. And you read all of these words, and these things that feel like quotes to us, that we quote when we are so speaking so eloquently about the Bible. We are speaking, we are so into our conversation or into our preaching. But these words that seems like quotes now, they were words that all these early apostles they declared. They were not just quotes, they were not just saying it for the saying sake, but they genuinely lived it. They lived that life, that if I live, I live for Christ. If I die, I die for Christ. And my goodness. And I'm just amazed about his story. I feel like all this talk and rambling still not, it doesn't do enough justice to the to to Apostle Paul. And maybe one of these days we'll just really go into it, because I just think about it that if not for this favor and favor that they went through, that they had, that the gospel must be preached. He planted so many churches. Like now, these Colossians now, the Christians in Colossae at the end, it was later at the end that I realized that at the time that Paul wrote this epistle to the Colossians, he had never even been there. They had not seen him before. I'm not sure after then, no. But as at the time he wrote the epistle, where he wrote this letter, they had not been there, they had not seen him before. And he was like a patriarch for that Christian community at Colossae. And he planted so much churches. He will go and check on the ones he planted. There were some he planted sef that he could not go back to check, or he just sent representative, he sent fellow brothers in ministry to go and check on them, to encourage them, to teach them, to be with them. And I just marvel at how something so ugly, something so dark, something so violent could be turned into something so pure, something so soft and innocent and calm. And one thing about Apostle Paul again that I've come to understand about his letter is that he boasts in Christ. In fact, if you read it from an ordinary point of view, you might almost say he has pride, to be very honest. He will talk when they are talking, maybe when, like I said, I mentioned earlier that a lot of early Christians then, they really didn't like him. And even if the acceptance they accepted him, it was just, let's just accept him. There was no, like, they were still weary of him in like, in a matter of speaking. And you would actually not blame them, considering the past that he's had. And you hear how Paul will boast and will be like, if it's as regards to suffering, I suffer more than this. I can't remember the church, I think it was the Corinthians, I can't remember, where he said that he is deserving of their gifts, their honorarium, that is deserving if they give him honorarium, but still he doesn't ask for it. I can't remember, I can't pinpoint it, and I can't verbatim, but that's just the gist of it, that is deserving of it. But or like the way other apostles or other missionaries get honorarium, but still he doesn't ask for it, that he works hard for his money and for what he has, and what anyone gives him, that is what he lives on. And how we will talk about, let's that it will be like, if he's to boast, he could boast that, let's measure, compared to other apostles, compared to other disciples, how many church have they planted, and he has done this, he has done that, but still, that he could boast, of his work and the result of his work in Christ. And sometimes I just find it humorous, because if you were to look at it from around, it could almost look like pride, but it really isn't. It's just, boasting in Christ Jesus, boasting in the fact that, yes, I know that all that I'm doing, I'm able to do it through Christ that strengthens me. Quite alright, but even me, I know in my heart that, no, I dey born for God, I dey for God. God, no, on this God matter, on this Jesus matter, we die here. Dat kind of thing. And I cannot just help but just marvel, to be very honest, just marvel at God, who is the creator of all things, and how he orchestrates things, how he makes the seemingly non-beautiful seem so look beautiful, not just seem, he makes it in a way that's so beautiful. How he washes the dirtiest, the most impure, and turns it to something pure. Imagine, remember Joshua the high priest in the book of is it Zachariah? I can't remember, where he was being condemned by Satan, by the devil, where he was being accused by devil, and God commanded one of the angels to take away his filthy robe and to clothe him in a clean cloth and all and a clean robe. And you just look at how easy, God can turn something seemingly bad, seemingly unlikable to something desirable. And it makes for our day-to-day life, our everyday life. There are times where you'll be in such bad situations. You'll be sometimes might not even be might not be necessarily bad, but it's not exactly a pleasant situation. And in the twinkle of an eye, you won't even you won't even realize when that situation changes, but you just find yourself that, oh wow, this is gone. You hear stories of people that had cancer, and they just went to for a checkup the previous week, and for some reason doctor say they should come again for medical checkup, and they are there again, and all of a sudden cancer is gone, tumor is gone, this one thing disease has disappeared. And it seems so unbelievable. How did this seemingly bad situation, how did it turn good? I didn't even know when it happened. I can't explain it. And it just makes God, I mean, God is such a genius, he's such a wonderful creator. And I would forever be grateful and thankful than me that I do not deserve it. I do not deserve, there is nothing about me that deserves God's, God pardoning me, God finding me worthy enough to be a candidate of salvation, a gift, and giving me that, okay, yes, Pelumi, be among those that enjoy this gift. There are people in the Amazons, there are people in tribalistic places that have never heard of the good news. Though missionaries, God is helping missionaries over the world, everywhere. They are going into places that you don't even know they exist on earth, just to preach the good news. And me, I've known, I was born into Christianity. I was born into Christian. In fact, if he's no Christ or nothing else, you will not go to church care. You will not come out for morning devotion. You will not do what? You will not pray. You will not know how to sing. You will not know how to pray. You will not know how to do what? You will learn it by force. I had no choice. I had no choice. I knew Christ from an early stage. I was born into Christianity. At the beginning of my life, it was something I was made to do. But as I started growing up, I started knowing Christ for myself and really understanding Christ. For me, I was privileged. There are people that didn't know Christ until their later years, their adulthood, their adult years. And my goodness, I just thank God for salvation. I could go on and on and on. I think you could God is so great. Salvation is a topic that I don't think is an inexhaustible topic. You cannot exhaust it. You cannot stop talking about it. You will always find chapters and places in the Bible that just references it and just makes it such a mind blowing concept and such humbling experience that God, wow, you found me worthy enough. Me, what am I? Thank God, and I will always be grateful. I'll always be thankful. And it goes to show that there is no one irredeemable. There's no one that God can redeem. No amount of sin, no amount of rebellion, no amount of waywardness, no amount of worst of the worst things that you could have done that will ever make you redeemable in God's sight, in God's presence, as far as you are willing to declare, accept him as as your Lord and Savior. And yes, you are my God, and just you and you alone. You are the captain of my ship, no going back. It's just you for me. Salvation is made readily available. No wonder the book of Romans says that we should come boldly unto the throne of grace, that we might obtain mercy, that we might obtain mercy. Thank God for salvation. Thank God for His grace. Thank God for His mercy. Thank God for salvation. May God continue to help us. May God and I pray for those that are in places in the world that salvation, this good news of the gospel hasn't gotten to, that God helps, that God please in His infinite mercy make way, that they also hear the good news. It is a privilege that everyone should share to learn of the good news, to hear of the good news, to partake of the gift of the salvation that God has given and brought to us freely at no cost whatsoever. So, thank you guys. I'm sorry today. I know today just feels like rambling. Even though I know it just feels like no structure. I didn't really plan. I just was like, I'm just going to carry the mic, and I just prayed like for a minute or two that Holy Spirit, please just give me a chance, just tell me what to say, because I didn't plan anything. The only thing I know that has been in my heart is that, just Apostle Paul. I've been reading about him, and I've been coming across him a lot for the past few weeks, and it's just been his story, his life, his words, the epistles he is written. It's just been coming to me over and over again, and I just felt like talking about it. And all the talk I've been talking is just been in my head. Most all those conversations has just been going on in my head, and I just couldn't help but just talk about him today. So you guys should pardon the rambling. Hopefully by next episode I'll be able to review another book. I promised that the next episode I was going to review an English book, but I didn't forget. I'm standing on it. But anyways, that's it for today's episode. Thank you guys. You guys, I'm so grateful. Oh, I keep getting bolder. I mentioned it the first time. I keep getting bolder each time I record an episode, and less stressed about perfection, and just being so more natural and just being me. I feel like if you really look at it deep, you can, or you would realize or notice that about the latest episodes. But thank you guys so much. So yeah, I'll be drawing the curtains for today. Bye.